Hello and welcome to Empire of Wargames. My name is Sigmar, and in today's video we are going to be taking a look at the Shadowblight Cyst Battleforce for the Maggotkin of Nurgle for Age of Sigmar. If you're interested in points, upgrades, or whether this box meshes well with the Spearhead box, you've come to the right place. Now, as far as basics go, check out the pinned comment down below for any other 2024 Battleforce reviews, or check out the description down below whether you want to join us over on Discord for discussions and so on, or if you want to follow me over on Twitch or support me on Ko-Fi and so on. So let's talk about the Maggotkin of Nurgle 2024 Battleforce. This one is quite interesting, and I had to think about this one a little bit longer than for all the other Battleforces, simply because it does have very different opinions on how people just reacted to it, what they think about it, and so on. So in general, to summarize what a lot of people think and my thoughts. This particular Battleforce is definitely nothing for competitive-minded people, simply because the currently better units for the Maggotkin of Nurgle are usually demons. What you're getting in this particular Battleforce, though, are humans. You're basically getting the human side of Maggotkin of Nurgle, which are not horrible by any means. I think a lot of the units are still very much playable. And if you're not playing at the top table, which 99% of you are not, then this particular Battleforce still holds a lot of value. But that is definitely something to note and to talk about, because it does hold some value. Then, as far as the models themselves go, you are getting a lot of models that are incredibly damn cool. Especially the Harbinger of Decay, probably one of the best models from last year, and a model that people hold in high regard. One thing I do not understand about the Harbinger of Decay is why it's an online-only model for the Warhammer store. That model is probably on its own just as a painting project, selling a lot as far as characters go. That is something I do not understand. Generally speaking, a lot of this particular Battleforce is online only, which technically speaking ups the value of this particular box, because, you know, your third-party retailer is not going to sell you any of these models, or most of them, at a 20% discount. That's not how online-only models work from GW. You usually, if they're a great store, going to get like a 5% discount, maybe 10, but that's a rarity. So that is definitely something to consider as well. And yeah, with that, we've probably kind of summarized this box already very well. If you're a casual player, if you like cool painting projects, this box is definitely for you. If you play at casual tables, this box is also going to do a lot of good. And overall, I personally like this box very much. For veterans, it's a little bit of an iffy box because, you know, we're going to talk about the Spirit in a little bit, but it's questionable whether these two boxes mesh very well, and that means that for a lot of veterans, they're already going to have a lot of these units. And with that, let's take a look at the list and talk about the models themselves. So with this particular box, you're going to get exactly 990 points, which is perfect because it allows you to play 1000 points games. And it all works in a single regiment. You could even split up your Postgol Blight Lords into 2 units, which I would recommend if you wanted to play this box out of the box at 1000 points. As I said in previous Battleforce reviews, these Battleforces usually do not have any kind of scheme to them as far as, you know, making it work in a regiment goes, or should it be playable out of the box, because some Battleforces are most definitely not playable out of the box. The fact that it works so well at almost exactly 1000 points in a single regiment is something that is really cool, and that should be appreciated, and is definitely going to up the mark of this particular box, because that is just cool to have an exactly 1000 points list out of a Battleforce. As far as the units go, you're getting the Harbinger of Decay as your leader. As I said earlier, a really cool model visually speaking. Rules-wise, a little bit questionable, definitely situational, and not something you are going to see at a lot of competitive tables. But if you are just a casual player, it's a perfectly fine model and it's going to do a lot of good on the table. Then we have our Putrid Blightings. These are evergreens. You're going to see them in most lists, no matter which kind of format you're playing. And having 5 of them here is decent, but also just nothing to write home about. Then we're getting 10 Rotmire Creech, which is a massive surprise. We were not sure whether GW is just going to remove most of the Warcry warbands, or if they are going to implement them into the different armies. Now, obviously, we know that the Rotmire Creed are a just fixed thing within the Maggotkin of Nurgle book and within their battle tome in the future as well. So getting them in here is definitely not a bad thing. And, you know, as far as Warcry goes, at least at the time of recording, they are still a playable Warcry warband. And, you know, they are updated. They're a bespoke warband. and they are a lot of fun to play with. So definitely also a plus to just get a Warcry warband in here that just works. And then last but not least, you're getting 4 Puskol Blight Lords, which are quite expensive on their own. For some reason, they're also online only. So that kind of ups their value within the Battleforce. And you can also assemble one of them, or maybe even multiple if you wanted to, as Lords of Afflictions, which are characters that cost 220 points. I would probably recommend just assembling one of them as one, just so you have the option. Truth be told, none of your opponents is probably going to be able to say which one is a Puskol Blight Lord and which one is going to be a Lord of Affliction. So if you wanted to run them as just 4 Blight Lords, you could do that. If you wanted to have one of them as a Lord of Afflictions, you could do that as well. It gives you a lot of options to just assemble one of them as a Lord of Afflictions, and that's basically that. So having 4 of them in here, definitely not a bad thing. But, you know, as we are going to talk about with the Spearhead, maybe a little bit overkill and a little bit of variety would have done a lot of good here. So one thing I almost forgot to talk about is that with this particular Battleforce, you have access to a Regiment of Renown, namely the Full Goth's Shudderhood. And this one is actually pretty decent. Is it a competitive choice? Probably not, I'm not sure. But as far as the rules go, as far as the miniatures go that you are going to be running, this is actually super solid. I've already had the chance to play this one together with my Slaves to Darkness, and those were actually a ton of fun. So if we take a look at the rules, you can see that you are getting a -1 for hit rolls if you are close to your Harbinger of Decay, and your army is going to be healing once in any of your hero phases. And it is super solid because all of the miniatures that you can see in this particular Regiment of Renown are fairly durable. They have decent ward saves, great regular saves, and overall it's just a great Regiment of Renown. So maybe if you are playing any of the other factions that you can see on the left hand side, like, you know, Blades of Khorne or Slaves to Darkness or Skaven, maybe even with the new Skaven-type box, and you're looking for a little bit of a different painting project and to switch things up a little bit, this one could be a legitimate reason to pick the Battleforce up and maybe then later on expand it, and first up, just use it as a Regiment of Renown because, you know, that's a valid and pretty decent option. Next up, let's take a quick look at the savings. As always, the price is not confirmed yet. You know the deal, that's basically that. As far as the savings go, if the price is correct, we are taking a look at savings between 31 and 35%. Not sure what happened there as far as regional pricing goes, but if you buy this in Europe, you're apparently getting a lot more value out of this box. So yeah, if you can find it at a 20% discount, which should be very easy, you're going to be saving a ton of money, at least in Europe. If you are in the UK, it's a little bit less, but overall, I think that the savings for this box are slightly above average. That's how I would just summarize it, and it's fine at that. You know, you're saving a ton of money. If you already have a Harbinger of Decay, I probably would not buy this box. If you already have Rodmire Creed, I'll probably not buy this box. And if you're already drowning in Puskol Blight Lords, which is definitely a possibility, considering they can also be found in the Spearhead, would also not buy this box. So for veterans, this box is probably not worth it. For new players or as a gift for someone who wants to start the faction, this box is probably a very, very good buy. Next up, let's talk about the upgrades. And one upgrade path I want to talk about first, simply because it's that popular, is buying this Battleforce twice. Get asked it a lot in the comments, and usually speaking, it is not worth it. Just generally, if you look at this particular Battleforce, you're going to be drowning in Blight Lords and having 2 Harbingers of Decay, while it being a really cool model, it's just not worth it. And multiple Rodmire Creeds and so on, while they have their value as the probably only ranged unit within the Maggotkin of Nurgle, I just don't see a lot of people painting and actually fielding 20 of them. So generally speaking, my opinion on this is not buying this twice is probably the way to go. I would probably just buy this Battleforce once and then go towards buying the other stuff separately, because I personally think that this box meshes very well with the demon side of Nurgle, where you can add great unclean ones, plague bearers and all that good stuff, and it all meshes very well together. And it was already a slight hint on whether I think that the Spearhead meshes well with this particular Battleforce. Now, the Spearhead usually I try to combine with Battleforce, and I've done this for years, previously Vanguard boxes obviously, simply because it's a great way to get things at a discount and save a lot of money to get more points for less money. I think it makes a lot of sense. But this year I'm particular about this because GW announced that during the announcement stream of these Battleforces, where they said that their product designers or whoever is kind of responsible for these boxes try to make sure that the spearhead meshes somewhat well with the battle force. That is not the case here. As you can see, you're getting a spoilbox Scrivener, you're getting 10 Plague Bearers, you're getting another 2 Postgol Blight Lords, and you're getting 5 additional Blight Kings. So I think that the character and the Plague Bearers and the Blight Kings are all not bad. But the 2 Postgol Blight Lords are bordering on a little bit of overkill. Having 6 of them is something that you are very, very rarely going to run. The one list I can see you running this in would be to have a lot of afflictions and then running 5 of them in their regiment. That would work, but that would be approximately 1000 points in one regiment, which is just Postgol guys on big flies, and that's basically your entire regiment. If you see yourself running that in a casual list simply because you like these models, it is a very valid way to go about building your list. But for most people, I think a lot of people would just value variety within their list and would rather have a little bit of points and space for a great unclean one or some of the other really cool monsters that Nurgle has access to. I personally would not buy the Spearhead on top of the Battle Force. I would rather go for separate purchases of, as I said, monsters or just a great unclean one, Plague Bearers, and so on to upgrade your Battle Force and move slowly towards 2000 points. So what is my conclusion on this particular box? I would probably give this box a 7 out of 10. The reason being that you are getting a lot of points for your money at approximately 1000. It is a regiment that works out of the box at exactly 1000 points, which I consider to be very, very cool and just a nice little bonus. Points are probably going to change at some point if you watch this like 3 months down the line or even later. But at the time of recording, I think it's really cool that you can play this directly out of the box. And you are getting a lot of the human side of the Maggotkin of Nurgle, which has an easy upgrade path via the Demons of Nurgle with, Plague Bearers and so on, as I talked about earlier. As far as the downsides go, I think that buying this box twice is definitely not a good idea. Combining it with the Spearhead is questionable at best. I personally would not recommend it. I can see it working for some people, but most are probably better off just buying things separately. So while going for the Demons is a great upgrade path, everything else is a little bit lackluster as far as that goes. Last but not least, I would have wished for a little bit more variety, especially as far as the Blight Lords go. It would have been cool to have some demons in this particular box. There are especially some really cool centerpiece models that would have made a great splash in this particular battle force to make it a little bit more interesting. A lot of people, especially within the Nurgle community, already have the Harbinger of Decay simply because it was that impactful and that impressive when it released during the Dawnbringers campaign. And now a lot of them just already have this model on the tabletop rules-wise. It is not cool enough to run it multiple times. And as a painting project, you usually don't want multiples of these. So yeah, for veterans, definitely not the ideal box. So overall, I think giving this particular box a 7 out of 10 is definitely fair. I think it is definitely an above average box that is not bad by any means, but is also not in the top echelon of Battle Force boxes that I've reviewed over the years. So I think if you're new or if you're buying this as a gift for someone who wants to start this faction, it is a great buy. For everyone else, I would probably skip this box, and especially if you buy this box, don't upgrade it with the Spearhead. Go for separate purchases, especially in the demon side, and go that route. With that, I hope some of the information here was insightful and helpful. If you have any questions, drop them down in the comments below. And with that, I hope you enjoyed all of my Battle Force reviews. There's going to be one last video where I'm going to just summarize my reviews, my thoughts on these. And yeah, that's going to be that for the 2024 Battle Forces. Thanks so much for listening. Take care.